We here at Covey Clan Hunting are very thankful for our freedom. And we realize that that freedom does not come without great sacrifice. First and foremost, my Lord and personal Savior, Jesus Christ, paid the ultimate price by sacrificing himself on the cross for our sin. Those who follow and believe in him experience true freedom. Galatians 5:1 states, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." In the same vein, I am interviewing today another man who fights and sacrifices for our freedom. My nephew, and a member of Covey Clan Hunting and the United States Air Force, Ryan Jones. We will cover his time in the Air Force and his love for hunting, fishing, and the great outdoors. He's had quite a 5-year run, and I think you'll be excited to see and hear about everything that he has to say. Please like and subscribe to Covey Clan Hunting, and check this out at Team Bearded Outdoors, Bearded Outdoors USA, for a great discount on our products. All right, I'm here with Covey Clan Hunting and my nephew Ryan Jones, who's a great hunter. Wanted to get him in this interview today and talk about his journey with hunting, the outdoors, and the military. And so why don't we just get right to it. How you doing today, Ryan?
Fantastic, like always.
Good. Awesome. So my first question for you is, where did you get your love for the outdoors from? And I know I've known you for 21 years now.
Yeah.
Time flies by, and I just wanted to ask that to you. And I know that you've hunted and fished and done a lot of different things, and I always loved that. So where do you think that came from for you?
Yeah, well, my grandparents, so up there I really just enjoy it. His property's so amazing. You got hunting, fishing. Plus I grew up with a lot of great influences in my life. So I've always been around hunting and fishing, and it's something that's just kind of always stuck around with me. It's amazing. It's so peaceful. It's my relaxation. It's just I really enjoy it. So
Awesome.
Yep.
So what do you think, what is it about the outdoors in general and the country life that kind of gets you going? I know, like, you were just outside all the time when you were a kid. Like, compared to doing other things, like, being indoors, doing that type of work, or or any hobbies or anything like that. What do you think makes it different for you in the outdoors?
That's a really great question. I don't know. I just love being outside. I love the fresh air. I feel like it's something new every day. You're never gonna get the same air twice. You're never gonna see the same things twice. You might, but something's always gonna be different about it, and that's what I love.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, I remember you fishing in particular for hours as a kid by yourself. Can you describe that experience and kind of what that did for you? And not everybody has the patience, number one, to be outside to do that for a long time, or just even for a few minutes, let alone hours. But you were very, not only patient, but very determined and very successful as a fisherman.
Well, it's something that, I don't know, it's like Billy with his baseball. You hit a good ball and you're like, okay, this is nice. I love this. I'm gonna try and strive so I can hit another one again like that. So it's kind of like fishing, You got there's so many different techniques about it. It's so much stuff to learn, and that's what I loved. And there's always that moment where you can catch a bigger fish than last time. So that's what I'm always after. I'm always trying to catch my biggest fish, no matter where it is. And fishing's so it's wild. There's so many different ways to catch fish, so many different techniques. Fishing deep water, fishing shallow water, clear water, muddy water, like it's always going to be different.
Right.
So it's a challenge of it that I love the most.
That's
very
cool.
challenging. So
it is challenging. That is for sure. Now, you might even like fishing more than hunting.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah, that's a real cool thing. What do you think, like, with fishing? You said, you have all these different scenarios, right? It's always a new challenge. What is What is the fishing that you like to do the best, and what was the most challenging?
Probably, I love trout fishing. Well, you know,
Right.
the big king salmon, just the
Yeah.
fight. The fight that they put up is amazing. Plus, you're fishing in just big creeks with the mountains around you. It's a beautiful time to fish, October, so you know, like the trees are changing colors. So I love that, but I don't know, most challenging fishing. I don't know, it all comes pretty naturally to me, so
Right.
it's not really, but,
Well, you have been very successful at
Yeah.
it. Seems like every time
I'd
you
say
went-
trout fishing, it's tricky. It's
Yeah.
very tricky, very, very tricky.
Now, did you like fishing more like in small little ponds, or did you like going out on bigger lakes better?
Well, the
Or-
small ponds are easier, you know, they're
Right.
just congested, but the lakes and creeks, it's challenging, so I enjoy that too. I just like fishing somewhere new, you know?
Yeah.
It's like figuring out what they're biting, what they want, what
Right.
they want. So
Well, that's another thing too. The more different locations that you fish, the more you get to see the world
yeah,
too.
exactly.
You know, and so it's always something new. That's awesome.
Sure is.
So I recall you also used to go down to Naples, New York at the start of fishing season every year. Can you kind of just, you know, I know for those people around here, they know what that is, but for those, you know, out in the world, can you kind of describe that experience?
Yeah, so it was April 1st is opening day of trout season. So down in Naples, we have the Finger Lake, so we have Canandaigua Lake. So it wraps into a big stream, and then it gets smaller and smaller and goes for miles. Oh gosh, it's for miles, this creek. And the trout, they spawn, so they'll come up the creek and spawn. And in this town, Naples, you'll go there, they have an annual fishing derby, so you pay like $10 or something, and you'll go fish all day. Like, there's tons of fish in here, crystal clear water. There are big pools, like 10, 15 feet deep, and then you got water that's inches deep that these fish will spawn in. So it's really a beautiful sight. There's always so many people down there, it's crazy. It's insane. I think that's the money for Naples is trout season.
Right.
Yep. So now it's just a beautiful, beautiful place, beautiful event that they have. So
That's
I really
cool.
love it.
Now, do they shock the fish?
Oh yeah, yep.
So there's
I think
like-
it's like 2 or 3 weeks prior. They'll do a shocking, so the DEC, the game wardens, they'll go through, they'll shock certain parts of the stream, the creek, that they shock every single year, and they'll see what the numbers are. I think last year they were kind of down because the water was so low, but yeah, they do that. I forgot about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
So when they do that, you really get to see, you know, if there are a lot of fish in the creek that year, or it's just same numbers or not. But
Right.
it's cool.
Awesome. All right, well, I think we've covered the fishing. So I remember when you first started hunting around 2016, you got your first 8-point buck. You wanted to kind of just go through that experience and kind of, I know it was a little while ago, but as much as you can remember about your first buck that you ever got, and that was with a bow, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I believe it was my second year bow hunting legal, because I was about 15, and I was just hunting one day. I was talking to my father, so we set up this new tree stand behind my grandparents down in like a little valley. And it's a perfect spot. You got it's a big bowl basically almost. So the deer will come from one side, they'll funnel down into it, and then they'll wrap up the other side. And I saw that trail, I was like, hey, we should put a stand here. So I was like, all right. So we put up a stand there. I was hunting there for a few days, I believe. And I was seeing deer, nothing too crazy, no big bucks or anything, but one night I went down there, I was like, all right, this is it. I'm really feeling it. It was cold out, a little windy, but not too bad. So I'm sitting there, gosh, got there around noon, and I sat until about 4 or 5. Didn't see a single deer. All of a sudden, there's a red fox that came along right in front of me, just dancing along, and I was like, my grandfather always said, if you see a red fox while you're hunting, something good's gonna happen. You're gonna see a big buck at least. 5-10 minutes later, heard something, you know, coming up. I look down, coming up the hill behind me, stand up very slowly, you know, try not to spook them. Turn around, I'm at full draw, it's about 10 yards. Looks at me, I'm like, oh, this is it. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to get a shot at him. starts to turn away. I'm like, boom, got him. He must have he ran all the way down the gully, all the way up the other side, and then he dropped, I think it was like 100 yards away. So.
And for those who don't know, this
gully is
the real deal.
Yeah,
I mean, it goes down probably, I don't know, about 70, 80 feet.
Yeah.
And then it goes back up probably another 100 feet. And that deer went all the way down and
all the way up.
And there's only one place where you
entrance
put
and
this,
exit, yeah.
where you put this stand, where you can actually cross that gully, cross the water, the little creek that's there, and then get up. So, how was it dragging out that deer?
Oh, it was not fun. It was not fun. So we went the next morning because I wasn't sure how I hit it. I told my father, I was like, I hit him right behind the shoulders, but you know, I'm so high up in the stand that I'm shooting basically directly down at the deer. He was basically right underneath me. So he's like, well, it's a small window to hit. And I was like, yeah, he's dead up there. But so yeah, we went up there the next day, and my dad was wheezing. He was grunting and wheezing. It's terrible. It was a bad drag for sure, but it was fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. So what did it feel like when you finally got it? You know, you thought you hit it, but you confirmed it. You got it, and that feeling of your first buck.
Yeah, I kicked in. I was like, this is insane. I'm gonna do this again and again and again and again.
Right.
Yeah, that's something I always loved. Even when I, shoot a doe or something, it's just reward. It's so rewarding.
Yeah.
It's so rewarding. Just an amazing feeling.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Yeah.
I mean, to do that in archery season for your first deer, that's an accomplishment. That was a nice buck. Well, let's go on to 2017, and this was a 2-in-1 hunt, and I won't give away any more than that. I'm going to let Ryan explain it. But this was, kind of across the road where we also hunt, in a stand that, I think it was in the same stand that...
It's been in the same stand that I've shot a lot of deer.
Yeah, we all have.
Yeah.
We've all shot a lot of deer out of this particular stand. But I always give him credit. It's his stand. We always have this little thing going between us. Somebody kills a big buck. Well, you were sitting in my stand, or this is my property or my thing or whatever, or use my gun or my bow. So we always have this little competition between us all, but it's awesome. It's just part of deer camp. But anyway, without further ado here, why don't you describe the 2-for-1 hunt?
Of course. All right, so like I said, I went up to that stand way up top one day, and it was kind of later in bow season. It was later October, beginning of the rut. So I was hunting, was trying to wait for a nice buck, and I've been seeing deer all day. They've been running through there, nice cold evening. And then my father texted me, he's like, hey, next deer you see, just shoot it. We need some meat in the freezer. One of my buddies does. So I was like, okay, cool. So like about another hour passes. It's about 3:30 in the afternoon. See this doe by herself coming through, just trotting through, literally right behind the stand. So I stand up, grunt at her, stop her, shoot her. Boom. I heard her drop like 30 yards away. So I call my dad, I'm like, hey, I got a deer down, you want to come up, grab the deer, and then I'll just come back down with you, like I'm probably done for the day. So I can hear the four-wheeler, it was like 5-10 minutes later, and I hear the four-wheeler coming up. I'm like, oh, perfect. So I'm like starting to get ready, I'm starting to take my harness off, whatever, and all of a sudden I hear just running in the leaves. So I look up, I'm like, oh no, I was like, that's a buck. So I get my bow ready, take my quiver off, put it down, rack another arrow in there. I stand up. This buck literally followed the same exact trail that doe ran.
Right.
Stopped him, same exact spot. I think my dad still has the video, or the picture. The arrows are laying this far apart. Literally right next to each other where I shot this deer.
I'll have to look that up.
I think he still has the video, and I shot him, and he ran probably about 30-40 yards, and they were laying right next to each other, like 5-10 yards apart. So I was like, that was insane. I was like, he was probably honored. He was probably honored from getting his action going.
Just during the rut.
Yep.
Wow.
So Yeah, that was fun. That was a really cool experience. And as soon as I shot them, they came over the hill.
Right.
Yep. So that was the most wild part for me. I was like, 30 seconds later, and he probably would have seen him. I would have
Well,
been able to
and
shoot
the
him.
buck fell close to where the doe was
Yep.
too, right?
Yep.
Like, so they both,
Yep.
the arrows were close together, the
And
buck and the
yeah, we
doe
didn't
were
have to
close
do
together.
anything, really. Just drag it next to each other, and it's perfect.
Wow.
Took some pictures. And
That's something, I mean, you don't see very often.
it wasn't a giant buck, but it was a little basket rack. But it was just that it just happened so fast, you know.
Yeah.
It's like I have to at this point. Like, everything's going on. They're coming to get me. I already got one down. Like,
Right.
so that kind of ended my season for me. But it was good. I was happy about that. That was really
Absolutely.
sweet.
No, it's a great
It
accomplishment.
really is.
And then in 2018, you probably had your best year hunting.
Yeah, definitely.
You got your biggest buck ever with a gun,
Yep.
and then you also got your first 10-point buck with a bow. So why don't you talk about those stories?
Yeah.
I guess the bow one first,
Yeah,
because
the
that
bow.
happened first.
Yep. So I think it was like November. It was later in the season, almost right towards the end of bow season. I was hunting for a while and just didn't see anything I wanted to shoot, you know. So I'm sitting in the stand right across from my grandparents. It's perfect. Sitting up basically on a hill. There's a big apple tree, 2 apple trees actually, and then there's a creek bottom, just full of bedding, and then you got the side of the hill. So I always love that spot. I usually sit there early season or towards late season. And I was hunting there, it was probably around 3:30 again, and I didn't really see anything all day. Nothing. One of those days, another slow day. And I saw, again, another red fox. I still have a video of it, the red fox. I'll send that to you.
Okay.
But, yep, the red fox came out, and I was like, oh, here we go again. I was like, same as my first deer I ever shot. And out of nowhere, a few minutes later, the 10-point comes out of, yeah, he must have been in Marion's. And he came out, I saw him, I was like, oh, there we go. I was like, it's game on. It was about probably a 32, 35-yard shot, the furthest I've ever shot my bow, at a deer at least. So I'm sitting there, pull back, taking my time, steps broadside, bat, let it fly, perfect, I hit her, whack. I'm like, perfect, did that mule kick, everything, tail goes up, flickering, boom, running. So I wasn't pulling back that much, I think like 50, 55. So when I hit, it didn't go all the way through the deer.
Right.
So there's just a hole in the top, like up higher. And so we couldn't find blood for the longest time.
Right.
So I was like, I know I hit him. I know I did. Like, I just know for certain I hit him. So we were walking around in that bottom for about 15, 20 minutes looking for him, couldn't find him. So I'm like, my dad's like, we should probably head back, just come back in the morning. I'm like, no, we'll find him. So I was like, all right, we'll do one more pass. So I just pick a random spot. I'm like, that looks good. And I just start walking. I'm like, oh, there he is, right at my feet. Almost stumbled right on him because it's so thick in there, you can't even.
Oh, it's very thick.
You gotta
yeah.
like, no, you just gotta swim through everything. It's so bad.
Right.
But yeah, we finally found him, and I was psyched. I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't even know it was a 10-point.
Wow.
I kind of just saw the rack. I was like, yeah, okay, that's a nice deer. And then just, like, yeah, 10-point. I thought it was an 8, but it was also awesome. Biggest, most points.
Most points
Yeah.
that you ever shot.
Yep.
But then your biggest
Yeah,
came
my biggest,
next.
Yeah,
Same
that was
year,
a really good year.
gun season.
Yep. All
Let's
right.
talk
So,
about that one.
so down in Susan's where I shot my very first deer, that 8-point. That's the same stand I shot my biggest out of with the gun. So Susan, our neighbor, my grandparents' neighbor, she loves watching the deer down there. You know, she'll tell us, hey, there's a big deer down here. So it's kind of like cheating almost, not really, but she's our camera for us.
Yeah.
So she texted my father, and she sent him a picture of this deer, and I was like, that's a nice deer, really wide, decent. He's not that tall, but he's tall. He's a good deer for sure, for up here at least. And so she texted that to him, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go hunt down that stand because he's been there for a few weeks now. So I go down there, I hunt, nothing, didn't see a single deer. Go down there again, hunt, not a single deer. And it's cold, it's midwinter, it's snowing, probably negatives out. So I go down there a third time. I'm like, all right, if I don't see him this time or any deer, because I didn't see anything last 2 times I was there.
Yeah, it's kind of
like,
a hit or miss
It
place.
is, it really is.
You really have to
Yep.
have patience sitting
Yep.
there.
And I was like, third time's a charm. Like, I put in almost 20 hours of this stand already. Like, no way I'm going back. So, I'm sitting there, absolutely nothing again all day. Finally, I'm just looking around waiting. I was sitting on my phone and I hear something. Thought it was a squirrel. Look down and there's this tree. And I look through it and all I see, this deer lifts his head and he's just going like this, and all I see was, I was just like wide. I was like, yes. I was like, that thing is huge. Like, this is definitely the one she got pictures of. And you know, like when you first look at a deer like that, you're like, okay, this is serious. Like,
especially when you're seeing a bunch of smaller
Small
deer.
ones all
When you see a
season.
bigger one,
Yep.
especially around this area.
Yep.
I mean, for those of you who don't know, we hunt in the western New York area, and if you we're not seeing 170-inch giants. Oftentimes 100-inch deer to 140 inches is what we're seeing up here. So other places around, it's not that there isn't bigger deer up there. There is, but a lot of times it's on farmland where there's a lot more food. Where we hunt in the Bristol Hills, it's kind of pass-through places. So we're hunting hard for long periods of time to get that type of buck that Ryan's talking about here.
Yep. So it was one of those things. I was like, this is the biggest deer I've ever seen, like in person, like anytime. So got my gun. I'm just sitting there, it's cram stand, and there's one tree where it's like, I don't know, probably 10 yards away from me. One tree. I was like, he's got to walk there, or else I can't even get a shot, because I'm just sitting here like, it's so hard because there's a tree right behind me. So I'm kind of just sitting there waiting for him. And he puts his head down, starts walking up to me, and I'm just, boom, got him, ran about 30 yards uphill, dropped down, called my grandfather, he came down, my phone died, so I couldn't get really any pictures, I was just waiting on him, but yeah, that was amazing. He came down there, he was like, what in the world? Like, you know how he gets, and he was super happy for me, so I'm glad I got to, share that moment with him.
Yeah, I like that picture you had too. You propped his head up with a little
stick. Yeah, yeah.
That was great. That was a big deer, and we'll do a story on Grandpa Jones a little bit later, but one of his biggest deer that he shot, a 1992 buck,
It's a replica of that one.
it almost looks exactly like the one that you shot. It's just amazing how close they are. So, absolutely, this is awesome. We're going to kind of go in now to 2019, the year he shot his last buck, and I wanted to, talk a little bit about that. And I know that year in particular, last year I got my biggest buck. We hunted together a lot actually that year. It was pretty much the two of us going in the woods and going back and forth trying to find locations. And where we hunt up there is, there's about 3 or 4 stands that are close together, and every time you're sitting in one of those stands, you question whether, oh man, I should have been over there. The deer. It's a crazy thing. But just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that in the last deer that you ever killed.
Yeah. All right, so again, this deer was way up top in that single stand. So I don't know, I forgot when it was. It was probably late October.
Yeah,
I think it was late October.
Late October, early November.
I don't know. It was actually a really beautiful night that night. So I was seeing deer. I must have saw 30 deer at least, and I saw a deer walking up on the ridge. So I was like, okay, it's probably a buck, So I got the grunt out. I was like, I'll just mess around with it. So I threw out a few grunts. He looks up. He turns around. He starts coming towards me. He's working that edge, and I'm like, oh, this is actually a pretty nice buck. He might be a little beat up, but he's pretty wide. He looks pretty big from the stand. So I just kept grunting at him. So he'd go to a tree, he'd rub it and make a little scrape, do his business, and then this is a really cool. This is probably the best experience I've had hunting, because I was really working this deer. Like I was calling him.
It's fun when you call him.
He was answering back. He would, he'd rub his tree, he'd get his business going. He was doing the whole works. So that was like a 30 to an hour process of trying to get him called in. And he's finally coming towards me. Again, he's walking directly at me, so I don't have a clear shot. He gets underneath me, he stops, shoot, it goes right over him. So I'm like, oh great, like this is perfect. I was like, he's not gonna stop, he's gonna take off, he's gonna run away. So he's running about, I don't know, he probably stopped like 25 yards broadside. So I get another arrow out, but it has the rage broadheads, the ones that open up, the mechanical ones. So I'm like, oh boy, here we go again. Usually they don't want to open up, or if they do open up, like just stop her. So I'm like, all right, well this is now or never. So I whack him, perfect shot. The rage broadhead just opens him up. He is leaking like crazy. He probably ran like 30, 40 yards and dropped him. So, but yeah, that was the craziest experience I've had hunting, because I was just calling that deer and working him in. He was responding back. It's definitely very eventful, very fun time.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's always nice when you're calling in a nice buck, and you know, it's a whole different experience than when they just show up.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and you see them for a while, and you got to work and call them in, and very rewarding.
Yeah.
I think, like you said earlier in the conversation, how every fishing trip, every hunting trip, outdoors is different. There's some things that happen the same, but there's a lot of things that are very unique to every single time that you're out there. I know for me, you know, the older I get, I appreciate those little differences. You know, and it makes me, you know, when you're sitting out there hours in the stand or putting that time in, you have to have the right mindset. Number one, to be able to kill a deer, to harvest it. If you're not paying attention and you're not ready, you know, there's chances that you're not going to get that buck, you know. But also just to appreciate the little things, like the fox that you keep seeing, you know, and you know, the weather and the trees, the area, all that stuff is God's creation, so it's a cool thing. So that particular year you mentioned, you know, you were putting in a lot of time because you knew it was kind of your last year, and you had made a choice after graduating high school that you were going to go into the Air Force. And little did you know that it was going to hit, you know, shortly thereafter. So can you just kind of describe in 2020, you know, you graduate in 2019, and you know, you're getting prepared and you go to basic training, and can you just kind of describe that whole process and I guess why you wanted to do that, and then kind of describe the process from there.
Yep. Okay, so towards the end of high school, I know, you know, I was kind of one of those kids that I didn't really want to go back to school. I just went to school for 12 years of my life. I don't want to go back again for another, let's say 4 or 2 years. But yeah, I just want something new. I wanted to, you know, I wanted to travel. That was probably my main reason, honestly, was to travel. I wanted to just get out of my hometown, explore the world, meet new people, honestly. And the Air Force has definitely opened up a lot of those opportunities for me. But yeah, like you were saying, so I left July, it was January 14th. And so it didn't pop off till about March. So yeah, towards the end of basic, I actually graduated basic March 13th, and the day before I was supposed to graduate, they're like, hey, it is popping off, like, sorry, your family's already here, but they cannot show up. So all that work going through basic, you know, people might say it's the easiest basic, which I think it is too, but it was still very heartening, very sad that our family was already there, but they couldn't come enjoy it with us. They couldn't come see our accomplishments. But yeah, it was a tough time, but we're through it now, so all that matters. We made it through.
So you went through, you know, and I know we traveled to Texas to see you where you were located, and we had a wonderful time there. It was fun, but you know, having to see you on the computer screen instead while we were just a few miles away from you, it was very odd. But we definitely appreciate your sacrifice and everything that you're putting into this. So kind of now that you've got through that part and you graduated basic training and you're in your role. Can you just kind of describe what it is you do now and what that means to you?
Yep. Yeah, so basically I'm an aircraft refueler, so I'll drive around these big green trucks, these fuel trucks, and basically a mobile gas station for planes. So if they need fuel, I drive up to it, unload my truck into their plane, and then they go about their day. But yeah, it's honestly, the way I think of it is, the planes won't be able to fly unless they had us, you know? They can't get their gas if it's not for us, so every time I fill a plane, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm helping out, you know, I'm doing my part, so it's actually pretty rewarding. Especially when I go on these TDYs for like training missions and stuff, like it's super rewarding, so yeah, I enjoy it, it's fun. It's super tedious and, I don't know how to say this, repetitive almost, but it's fun.
It's important work.
Very important work, yep.
Yeah, that's an awesome thing.
Yep.
Well, hopefully soon, I know you're going on different things, but hopefully we'll get to hunt again soon here and, you know, make this share your love for the outdoors with others, but this is at least one way, you know, this flashback of all of Ryan's main hunts and his fishing experiences. We wanted to cover that and share it with you because it's, like I've said I think many times before, number one, we love our those who serve in the armed services at Covey Clan Hunting. It's part of one of our key values of freedom, and that freedom does not come free, and it's from sacrifices from those like Ryan that give us the opportunity to live in this country in a free way and to make the choices that we want, to be able to hunt, to appreciate the outdoors, and just to live. So very much appreciate that and appreciate you. So thanks, Ryan.
Of course.
All right.